The conflict at the Hangzhou 100 Tex garment factory started after a workers' union leader was fired. Ted Pang-oh had just finished negotiating payment of overtime. Hundreds of workers went on strike in protest at his dismissal and occupied the factory for more than a month. Then a riot started.
We were very angry at the Chinese manager. He used an electric shock device on one of the female workers. It happened when she was talking about unfair treatment by the management. Most of the workers could not control themselves.
Our request to film inside the factory was refused, and its owners were unavailable to comment. The factory has been closed for several weeks because of the damage to the production line. The owners have now agreed to rehire the union leader.
For the European brand H&M, the violent protest here at the Chinese-owned factory is embarrassing. Staff are still repairing the damage done during the riot last month. Despite improvements in Myanmar's textile industry, labor unions say that still a lot needs to be done to improve labor rights.
Since EU sanctions were lifted 4 years ago, textiles have become the fourth largest export product from Myanmar. In 2015, the government agreed to a minimum wage of $2.60 per day, the lowest in the region after Bangladesh. This makes it attractive for foreign brands like H&M and Marks & Spencer.
An isolated case doesn't mean that the whole country is going to be like that. I mean, you can look at Bangladesh. Bangladesh went through a period of lots of strikes and things like that. So, you know, one case, okay, let's be sensible about it and not panic. Huh?
This supplier for Marks & Spencer and other European brands organizes regular meetings with the workers to prevent tensions. Despite improving labor laws, issues such as child workers, poor safety measures and unpaid overtime still regularly occur in other factories. Some industry experts say European companies, which have strict policies at home, cannot always control what is going on inside factories abroad.
They definitely have a lot of power because they have buying power, so they have a lot of pressure they can exert. But they do not own these factories, and in many cases the factories are producing for many brands at one time.
H&M says it's deeply concerned by the recent conflict and that as a result the relationship with this factory is on hold. The company also says that it is working with the labor unions to address factory conditions. The Hangzhou 100 Tex garment factory is due to reopen on Monday, but it's not clear who it will be supplying to. Vaessen, Al Jazeera, Yangon, Myanmar.